Long ago, in the western deserts of Africa, there stood a wealthy kingdom called Nairobi. From the outside, it seemed like a land of endless riches, golden fields of millet, bustling markets filled with spices and ivory, and drums that echoed during festivals. But at the heart of it all sat King Jabari, a ruler whose heart was never satisfied. Jabari had inherited the throne from his father, a wise and kind leader. His father believed that a king's wealth lies in the happiness of his people. But Jabari was different. From the day he wore the crown, he wanted not just to rule Nairobi, but to become the richest king in all of Africa. He was already rich, his treasury overflowed with gold, cattle roamed his fields, and caravans brought him treasures from faraway lands. But Jabari's soul burned with a hunger for more. Each time a merchant praised another kingdom's wealth, Jabari clenched his fists and whispered, "It should be mine. All of it should be mine." One evening, while walking through the marketplace in disguise, Jabari overheard two traders whispering. "Have you heard of the Shadow Man?" one said. "The sorcerer from the salt dunes? They say he can grant any wish for a price." The word stabbed into Jabari's heart like a spear. That night, the thought consumed him. If the Shadow Man truly exists, perhaps he can make me the richest of all kings. Greed lit his path more than the moonlight. Against the advice of his council, Jabari rode into the desert with only a horse and a single guard. They rode for 3 days until they reached the salt dunes, where no bird sang and no water flowed. On the 4th night, a strange figure appeared at the edge of their campfire. Wrapped in tattered robes, his eyes glowed like embers. The guard trembled, but Jabari stepped forward. "Are you the Shadow Man?" the king asked. The stranger's lips curled into a grin. "I am he. And you, King Jabari, are not here by accident. I felt your hunger before you even left your throne." Jabari's voice was firm. "I want wealth beyond measure. More than any king in this world." The Shadow Man's grin widened. "And what will you give in return?" "Gold, cattle, slaves, jewels, anything," Jabari declared. The sorcerer shook his head slowly. "I have no need for your trinkets. I deal in souls." The guard gasped, but Jabari's eyes only grew sharper. His greed blinded him to fear. "If it will make me the greatest, then take mine," he said. The Shadow Man drew a dagger carved from bone. He sliced Jabari's palm, letting his blood drip onto the sand. As it touched the ground, the desert trembled. A dark wind howled, swirling around them, carrying whispers of spirits long dead. "It is done," the sorcerer said. "From this day, your wealth will never end. But know this, when your hunger grows too great, the very thing you worship will consume you." Jabari ignored the warning. His eyes gleamed with victory. When Jabari returned to Nairobi, miracles began to happen. His mines poured out rivers of gold. His granaries filled themselves even during drought. Caravans arrived with rare treasures, silks, spices, and gemstones without him asking. The people of Nairobi cheered. They called him Jabari the Magnificent. Even rival kings sent gifts, bowing before his wealth. But wealth did not satisfy Jabari. Each treasure only deepened his thirst for more. He doubled taxes, enslaved neighboring villages, and demanded offerings from his own people. Markets grew quiet. Farmers wept as soldiers took their grain. Mothers cursed the palace as their children starved. Yet in the palace halls, Jabari sat surrounded by mountains of gold, his laughter echoing like thunder. One stormy night, when Jabari counted his treasures alone, the Shadow Man appeared again. "Are you satisfied, O king?" he whispered. Jabari looked up, his eyes sunken but still burning with greed. "No. I want more. I want the kingdoms beyond the sea. I want the world itself to kneel before me." The Shadow Man leaned closer, his breath cold as the grave. "Careful, Jabari. You gave me your soul. And every debt must one day be collected." The king waved him off with arrogance. "Take it when you will. Until then, I will be the greatest man alive." The shadow man's laughter shook the golden walls, and then he vanished into smoke. Jabari never noticed that his reflection in the golden goblets no longer looked human, it looked hollow, with eyes as empty as the desert. The people of Nairobi once sang songs of their king. They praised his golden throne and the overflowing markets. But as months passed, joy turned to silence. The more wealth poured into Jabari's palace, the emptier the villagers' bowls became. At first, the taxes were small, one basket of grain from every farmer, one goat from every shepherd. But soon Jabari demanded more. A quarter of every harvest. Half of every herd. Then he demanded their children serve in his palace as slaves. Mothers wept as soldiers dragged sons away. Fathers ground their teeth as guards took the very tools they needed to plow the land. The once bustling markets fell quiet, for no one had anything left to sell. The people whispered. The king's heart is a pit without a bottom. His hunger is not for food, but for our lives. But they dared not speak too loudly, for Jabari's soldiers filled the streets like shadows. Inside the palace, Jabari sat surrounded by treasure. Gold coins spilled across the floor, ivory tusks leaned against the walls, and emeralds filled crystal bowls. Yet none of it brought him peace. He no longer slept soundly. Each night, he heard whispers echoing in the halls. At first, he thought it was the wind. But then he realized the voices came from the gold itself, millions of faint cries, as if each coin carried the sorrow of those it was taken from. You have stolen us. You have chained us. Your soul is ours. Jabari pressed his hands to his ears, but the whispers never stopped. One morning, the elders of Nairobi gathered the courage to confront their king. They entered his golden hall, bowing low, their eyes heavy with fear. "O King Jabari," their leader said, "your people suffer. They are starving. Your soldiers take everything. If you do not ease their burdens, rebellion will rise like a flood." Jabari's eyes flashed with anger. "Do you dare threaten me? Without me, this land would be nothing. I am the richest ruler in all of Africa. The people should thank me, not complain." The eldest elder raised his wrinkled hand. "We do not threaten you, king. We warn you. A king without his people is no king at all." For a moment, Jabari's heart faltered. His father's voice echoed in his memory, "A king's wealth lies in the happiness of his people." But the thought vanished as quickly as it came. He struck the floor with his staff. "Leave my sight. And if I hear such words again, your heads will roll." The elders bowed, but as they walked away, Jabari saw something that unsettled him. They did not bow in respect, but in sorrow. Their loyalty was already broken. That night, the Shadow Man appeared once more, sitting on Jabari's throne as if it were his own. His robe rippled like smoke, his eyes burning in the darkness. "Your people turn against you," the sorcerer whispered. "They whisper of rebellion. Their hunger is greater than their fear. Soon, your crown will fall." Jabari clenched his fists. "Then give me power. Give me an army greater than theirs. I will crush anyone who dares to rise against me." The Shadow Man chuckled, a sound like dry bones rattling. "Power, you say? You already gave me your soul. What more can you trade? Take whatever you want." Jabari shouted. "My blood, my body, anything. Just keep me on the throne." The Shadow Man leaned closer, his voice like a hiss. "Careful, Jabari. You are not asking for power. You are begging for chains." Then, with a wave of his hand, the torches in the hall flickered. Jabari felt fire crawl into his veins, filling him with strength beyond human measure. His eyes glowed faintly red. His voice deepened like thunder. "Now," said the Shadow Man, "you are more than a king. You are my vessel." And with that, he vanished. The next morning, Jabari's guards noticed something strange about their ruler. His steps were heavier, his gaze sharper, his words colder. He commanded them to double the taxes again, to enslave entire villages, and to silence anyone who dared to complain. The people of Nairobi cried out, but their cries were drowned in blood. Jabari's soldiers dragged rebels through the streets, their bodies left as warnings. Fear spread like wildfire. Yet in secret, hope still flickered. A group of villagers whispered in hidden corners, plotting to end Jabari's reign. Among them was a young farmer named Tay, whose brother had been beaten to death for refusing to give up his last sack of grain. Tay swore an oath. "If the king has sold his soul to darkness, then we will fight for the soul of Nairobi." Others joined him, traders, hunters, even some soldiers who had grown tired of cruelty. Slowly, the seed of rebellion began to take root. They had no gold, no armies, no magic. But they had something Jabari no longer possessed, a soul unbroken by greed. The kingdom of Nairobi was no longer a land of song and harvest. It had become a place of silence, broken only by the cries of the hungry and the marching of soldiers. Yet in that silence, rebellion was growing like fire smoldering beneath dry grass, waiting for the wind. In the markets, traders passed secret messages hidden inside sacks of millet. In the forests, hunters met at night to share news of uprisings in neighboring villages. Even within Jabari's palace, a few guards began to pass word to the rebels. They spoke of Tay, the farmer who had lost his brother, and how he had become the heart of the resistance. His voice carried both pain and hope. "We may not have gold," he told them, "but we have justice. And justice, once awakened, is stronger than any king's army." The people listened. And slowly, courage replaced fear. Meanwhile, Jabari sat upon his golden throne, but peace eluded him. The Shadow Man's gift of strength filled his body, but it also burned him from within. His eyes glowed faintly at night, and his reflection in the polished shields no longer looked like a man. More than that, he felt watched. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw shadows whispering in the corners of the room. Sometimes he thought he saw his father's face among them, shaking his head in disappointment. "Why do they haunt me?" Jabari growled one night, pacing his hall. "I gave everything for greatness. I should be worshipped, not cursed." But the voices in the gold only laughed. The rebellion began in a small village on the edge of the desert. When Jabari's soldiers came to take the last of their grain, the villagers refused. Led by Tay, they fought back with spears, bows, and burning torches. The soldiers, unprepared for such defiance, were driven out. The news spread like wildfire. Other villages rose up, attacking tax collectors, burning the king's storehouses, and freeing slaves. For the first time in years, the people tasted victory. Jabari's rage shook the palace. "How dare they defy me?" he thundered. "I am their king. Their lives belong to me." The Shadow Man appeared in the corner of the throne room, his voice like a blade. "No, Jabari. Their lives belong to themselves. Only your soul belongs to me." Jabari roared, hurling a golden goblet across the hall. "Then give me more power. If they want war, I will drown them in blood." The Shadow Man's grin widened. "Very well. But the deeper the drink, the darker the thirst." He touched Jabari's chest, and the king screamed as fire poured into his veins. His muscles swelled, his skin darkened like iron, and his voice became a roar. "Now you are more beast than man," the shadow whispered. "But every beast must one day be hunted." Jabari led his armies himself. His presence terrified both enemy and ally. Arrows bounced off his skin. Spears shattered against his body. With one swing of his sword, he could cut through 3 men at once. Villages burned, rebels fell, and Jabari laughed as the flames lit the night sky. "See how the earth itself bows to me," he shouted. But the people of Nairobi were no longer slaves to fear. For every village Jabari crushed, 2 more rose in defiance. For every rebel who fell, 10 more took his place. Tay stood at the front lines, his voice carrying above the chaos. "He may have sold his soul, but we still have ours. And a people with a soul cannot be broken." The word spread like a battle cry. Even some of Jabari's soldiers, seeing the fire in their people's eyes, laid down their weapons and joined the rebellion. Jabari returned to his palace in fury. His body trembled from the dark magic that burned inside him. He looked at the mountains of gold that filled his hall and realized something terrifying. Though he had more treasure than any man alive, he felt poorer than ever. His people hated him. His soul was chained. His kingdom was slipping away. "Why?" he shouted into the empty hall. "Why do I have everything and yet nothing?" The Shadow Man appeared once again, his face hidden beneath his hood. "Because wealth without love is emptiness. Power without purpose is ash. You asked for riches, not wisdom. You traded your soul, and now you are nothing but a hollow crown." Jabari fell to his knees. For the first time in his life, he felt fear, not of rebels, not of war, but of himself. "Then tell me," he begged, "how do I stop this curse?" The Shadow Man's eyes gleamed. "You cannot. The curse was not mine. It was born from your own hunger. Only by giving back what you stole can you hope to find peace." But Jabari could not imagine surrendering his throne, his treasures, his power. His heart was chained too tightly to his greed. And so he rose once more, vowing to fight until the end, no matter the cost. The land of Nairobi trembled beneath the weight of war. Smoke curled into the sky from burning villages, and rivers ran dark with blood. Yet for all his strength and treasure, King Jabari felt a storm rising that even he could not silence. The rebels gathered in the Valley of Ashes, where the bones of old wars still lay buried beneath the soil. Thousands came, farmers with sharpened hoes, hunters with poison arrows, blacksmiths with hammers still hot from the forge. At their center stood Tay, holding a broken spear, his eyes blazing with fire. "This valley will be our grave or our freedom," he declared. "But better to die free than to live as slaves to a soulless king." The crowd roared. Hope had hardened into resolve. Jabari marched into the valley with his army, his very presence sending shivers down spines. His body, swollen with dark magic, no longer looked human. His skin shimmered like molten bronze, his teeth like sharpened ivory. His soldiers marched behind him, but their eyes betrayed fear. He raised his sword, its blade burning with unnatural fire. "Bow to me, and I may spare your lives. Resist, and I will tear this land apart stone by stone." But the rebels stood firm. For once, not a single person knelt. The valley erupted in war. Arrows blackened the sky. Spears clashed against steel. The cries of the dying mixed with the roar of flames. At the center of it all stood Jabari, cutting through rebels like a storm of iron. His laughter thundered across the field. Every strike of his blade sent men flying. He seemed unstoppable, more monster than king. But for every rebel who fell, two more rushed forward. They no longer feared death, for they fought not for gold, but for the soul of their land. Tay charged through the chaos, his broken spear gripped tight. He faced the king directly. "You may have power, Jabari, but power without love is empty. You may have gold, but gold cannot save a hollow soul." Jabari roared, swinging his fiery blade. The ground shook as steel met wood. Sparks flew, but Tay held his ground. As their weapons clashed, something strange happened. Jabari's glowing eyes met Tay's steady gaze, and for the first time in years, the king saw truth. He saw the faces of the people he had betrayed, the mothers weeping, the children starving, the elders dying in silence. He saw his father's face again, whispering, "A king's wealth is the happiness of his people." Jabari faltered. His grip on the sword weakened. The fire in his veins sputtered. The Shadow Man appeared on the battlefield, unseen by all but Jabari. His voice hissed like a serpent. "Do not hesitate. Strike him down. Remember, you are mine." But Jabari's knees buckled. The truth was too heavy. "What have I done?" he whispered. The fire that had once empowered him now turned inward, burning his flesh, devouring his body from within. The Shadow Man's laughter split the air, cold and merciless. "You asked for riches. You asked for power. And so you are consumed by them." Jabari screamed as the flames swallowed him. His golden armor melted, his treasures turned to ash, and his monstrous form collapsed into the dust. The battlefield fell silent. The Shadow Man vanished into the smoke, his bargain complete. Where Jabari had stood, only a pile of blackened ash remained, and within it, a shattered crown. The rebels stared in awe. The tyrant was gone, not slain by their hands, but destroyed by his own greed. Tay lifted the broken crown, its gold cracked and hollow. "Let this be the lesson of Nairobi," he said. "A king without a soul is no king at all." The people cheered, their voices rising like thunder. For the first time in years, they felt the chains fall from their hearts. In the years that followed, Nairobi rebuilt itself not with gold, but with unity. The people chose leaders from among themselves, wise men and women who remembered the pain of Jabari's reign. Songs were sung of the Hollow King, not in praise, but as a warning. Parents told their children, "Do not sell your soul for treasure. Do not trade love for greed. For in the end, gold turns to ash, but the soul lives forever." And deep within the Valley of Ashes, where Jabari's crown had shattered, the grass grew greener than anywhere else in the land, watered, some said, by the tears of a king who learned too late that true wealth lies not in gold, but in the love of one's people. And so, the story of King Jabari, the ruler who sold his soul, comes to an end. His gold turned to ash, his power turned to chains, and his throne crumbled beneath him. But his fall was not in vain, for it left behind a lesson that echoes through time. True wealth is not measured by gold or power, but by the love, trust, and happiness of the people around you. A man who sells his soul for greed gains nothing but emptiness. But a man who protects his soul with honor, kindness, and wisdom leaves behind a legacy that no shadow can ever destroy. Remember this: greed consumes, but love builds. Power corrupts, but wisdom saves. Guard your soul, for it is the only treasure that can never be replaced.